Welcome to the Oscoda Township regular board meeting, July 27th of 2020. We've already begun the meeting at 6 p.m., accomplished our call to order, pledge of allegiance, did our roll call, entered closed session, and now we are in open session. Are there any agenda additions? Is there a motion for the agenda?
Is there going to be a bill payment added for the dust control?
Were you going to add that to the agenda?
Dust control.
Can we add that to the consent agenda? Is that okay?
Yeah.
No, we better add that separate.
Okay, then let's add, that is other number 3 for liquid calcium chloride.
All right. Is there a motion for the agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda
With the change?
with the change.
The consent agenda or the?
I'm sorry, the agenda.
I'm sorry, the agenda with the change. Thank you very much.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Palmer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion's passed. All right, we're into our first public comment period. For this first one, a card needs to be filled out. There's a 4-minute time limit, and when you come to the podium, please introduce yourself. Do we have any cards?
We do, we have Scott Frank associated with the sheriff.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Scott Frank, a resident of East Tawas in Iosco County for over 40 years. I am actually a candidate for Iosco County Sheriff come the August primary. It is an elected position, but I see it as I'm applying for a job. So I'm going to give you a little history of myself so you guys can make an informed decision. 1995, I was hired by Iosco County Sheriff's Office as a part-time corrections officer. 1996, I filled my degree from Northern Michigan University, and I put myself through the Regional Police Academy. After that, I became a certified police officer after I was hired back by the Oscoda Sheriff's Department as a road patrol deputy. I worked there 3.5 years, and the Board of Commissioners decided not to pick up the Cop Fast grant I was on, so myself and 2 other deputies were laid off. I went to Kalkaska, Michigan for 5.5 years as a deputy there. I did 1 year at Forest Area Schools as a school resource officer. I worked a year as a detective in their detective bureau, and I did 2 years at Clearwater Township, Rapid City. I was a township officer. Basically, what I did is I worked for the county, but I maintained and did everything for the township. I went to township meetings, township fire department, everything they had, I did that in conjunction with the sheriff's office. 90 to 95% of my patrol time was in that township. It's where I started to learn about community relations and community policing. It is needed. That is what police officers should be. I'd rather pull over 20 cars and talk to 20 people and give them warnings and introduce myself than give 20 tickets. After working for Kalkaska for 5.5 years, I was able to come back to my hometown of Tawas. I was hired by Tawas Police Authority. For 10.5 years, I worked there. I was able to be promoted to a sergeant, and I actually brought a canine program into the department. If you're ever in Tawas City, they have a Veterans Memorial next to the Tawas City Hall, next to the Tawas City Fire Department. It used to be a house there. We deemed that to be a drug house through the court system. We've proven that, and the court gave us that house. Worst thing she ever did is she paid off her mortgage. So what that did is we didn't have anybody to pay once we inherited the house. So we were able to use that money directly for drugs, education, anything to do with drug interdiction. We were able to use that. From that money, we were to purchase a canine dog. So 0 cost to the taxpayers. We brought a canine dog into the police department. I was instrumental in getting that. Zero money came from the budget. After working for 10.5 years at the Tawas Police Authority, I jumped over to the Sheriff's Department, was able to be hired by current Sheriff Al McGregor and Under Sheriff Ralph Boudreau. Current sheriff has 42 years experience, Under Sheriff has 37. So the first year I was there, I sat in my office like a sponge, eyes wide open, ears wide open, as much as I could learn from those two gentlemen. We call ourselves as the three-headed monster right now. Yes, the sheriff is the last line. He is the decision maker. Everything goes to his desk. But we have three people in our office that we work together to make the sheriff's department go forward. Everything from personnel decision to budgetary, we run that department together. So after 24 years of my law enforcement, Sheriff McGregor is leaving. He has endorsed me to be his successor. Under Sheriff Ralph Boudreau is going to continue and stay on, which is a huge asset to the county. He has brought hundreds of thousands of dollars into the county through his work with grants. So now I am running to run the department. Like I said, it is an elected position, but I see it as I'm applying for a job. I've chosen this community to come back to. I have 3 children. My son currently lives in Cadillac as a full-time corrections officer, and I have 2 daughters going to school. So me and my wife had decided this is the county we want to be here. I've been here 40 years of my 45 years. So I just give you a little history of myself. I'm running for sheriff, and I'd like your support come August 4th. So appreciate your time. 2 seconds left. I think we made it.
Thank you, that was good.
Thank you. Another card?
I have Mr. Scott Knicki about the EMS.
Good evening. I bet I could beat the 4 minutes, though. So my name is Scott Knicki. I'm the EMS Operations Manager here in Oscoda County. If you're ever in an accident or having a heart attack, the last thing you want to think about is whether or not an ambulance is going to show up to the scene. There are plenty of places in the country and counties where this is a real concern. EMS is a crucial link to survival in the chain of care. We've been lucky in Oscoda County to have such a responsive emergency medical services team, primarily because we as voters have ranked this service as a priority and supported key millage proposals in the past. We're calling on you to do that once again. This pandemic has made campaigning a bit challenging. Going door to door is just not feasible right now, and holding small town hall meetings with the number of citizen restrictions is almost impossible. We've been turned down to be put on the actual agenda at meetings and had to resort to public comment. Voters will be asked to consider a millage proposition for the county for emergency medical services. The question we had to ask ourselves was to renew at 0.443 mils, which was a request, and one that was honored since 1996, or to increase the millage to meet demands for the next 2 years. The current millage, again at 0.4431 mils, generates about $510,000. What voters will see on the ballot is an increase of 0.1569 for a total of 0.6 mils, generating roughly an additional $200,000 for about $710,000 total per year. That millage has not been increased since 1996. What this means is you pay 60 cents for every $1,000 of taxable value in your property. So for example, if your house were worth $100,000, you would pay $60 a year for these emergency medical services. And just to point out a few key statistics, our call volume slowly creeps up every year. It just doesn't, the reimbursement simply doesn't keep pace. Our EMS receipts have gone from 2.1 million in 2015 to 2.4 million in 2019. So there has been a slight increase there in revenue. Even though our call volume creeps up every year, it's still a pretty static number for us. Each year we run about 6,000 calls. Again, the millage has been in existence and has not increased in 23 years. From 1996 to 2019, it's only generated $66,938 additional dollars. Our budget has gone from $2.6 million in 2015 to run to $3.3 million in 2019. These increases here can be seen from fuel, maintenance, insurance, retirement plans, capital costs. Surrounding counties are currently paying $2.50 to $3 more per hour to do the same job with very similar benefits than we're asking our employees to do. We must increase these wages to keep staffing. Since November of 2019, we've lost 6 paramedics to surrounding counties simply for more pay. We cannot operate in this county without an effective ambulance service. So in our books, a vote of yes on the EMS proposition for ambulance service is a must, and that's what we're asking you to do for us. We hope you support us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Letter card?
I got Terry Ditcher, but he was just gonna defer his time to, Mr. Knicki if he couldn't make 4 minutes. Unless he wants to come up here. Okay. Next is, Richard Miller.
I guess I can take that off, can I? I'm sure you understand why I'm here. First off, what I would like to do is read the first sentence in this consent judgment for the issue with the Bowden property. It is hereby ordered and adjudged that the section line road right-of-way located at Town 24 North, Range 9 East in Oscoda Township, Iosco County, State of Michigan, and its being a section line road 66 feet in width and common to sections 16 and 17 and sections 9 and 16 shall remain public and not be gated, barricaded, obstructed, or interfered with in any way. This public road shall commence at a road commonly referred to as Loud Drive, and as much of the existing road as it is currently in existence, and it will be more specifically spelled out in a survey. That was identifying Riggs Land Survey, and that's copied here, attached to the court order. And the last judgment in here is hereby further ordered and adjudged that this public roadway, blah, 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 and as identified in the survey to be performed by surveyor Richard Miller. That's me, as you well know. My concern at this point is the Bowdens still totally obstruct that roadway. The gate is there now. Nobody can get on that public road. Let me read a letter from one of the property owners, because when I contacted Ron Bergeron, the now retired, he's a retired judge, but he is in active practice in Standish 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And I have a tremendous respect for Ron Bergeron, and he advised me what to do with respect to notifying property owners. One person responded, and she sent this document. Oh my God, I'm running out of time. Probably the best thing to do is identify what I have here. I have pictures. I have data regarding what issues need to be dealt with. And it now seems like just today, because every time I come into Oscoda, when I go back to my home in Greenbush, I take Loud Drive to see if anything is taking place. Today, I saw another huge pile of stone. So I'm assuming that they are doing something with respect to the road. But I can't determine that if I can't get in there to identify what it is, because this property owner in regards to the above, I am respectfully requesting that Oscoda Township immediately comply and enforce the above reference in order to avoid any further damage or liability, including further legal action against the township. Now, what I have proposed, if I can continue, And this is dated the 24th of this month.
Sorry, Mr. Miller, but time is up.
Pardon me?
The time is up, Mr. Miller.
Okay, well, I will give all these documents to this board member here. I have photographs of what exists
We
out there.
got it.
And I would like you particularly,
We got it, Mr. Miller. You just,
okay,
please provide it to him and.
I thank you for your time, and I will be here next week, or next meeting, or please let me know what
We have any other
is
cards?
taking place. And I respect your clerk, because he and his secretary are tremendous in helping me out. Thank you.
We got Larry Holland associated with the website.
Good evening, everybody. Larry Holland, local Oscoda Township resident. I want to talk about the website for a little bit. Members of the community are going to hear from our township board on an issue on their agenda underneath superintendent regarding requests to advertise RFQ for website redesign services. I attended the work session on Friday where some board members had expressed that they did not know what kind of criteria were necessary in order to approve or grade a successful bidder on website development. Another board member had interjected into the scenario and stated something along the lines of, well, there's certain criteria, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Cutting through all of this, I just want to read a section from our new position that is known as Ryan Mattis underneath our fellow program. On Ryan Mattis's bio for Oscoda Township, he is a community development fellow in Oscoda Township, where he will help finalize the redevelopment ready communities certification while working to update the master plan, redesign the township website, and aid in FAA spaceport licensure. I'm going to cut it there, not read the entire bio, but it's very pertinent because, first of all, we're bringing on people that may or may not have expertise on what are the criteria for a successful website. I know a little bit about website development, a little bit about marketing, and took a little bit of time to go out and research if anybody's developed criteria. A lot of people have developed criteria. I come back to something in business that says there's nothing new under the sun. Oscoda Township isn't doing something so revolutionary that we should move forward, getting ready to spend money without doing a little bit of research. This thing called Google, I heard of, you guys probably heard of it too, allows you to go out and type in things like criteria for successful municipality websites. Press enter. Thousands of pages will come up before your eyes. Not just a few, but thousands of pages. And since we already have a fellow under the fellowship program that also has some expertise, we have an economic development contractor that also hired on a marketing firm that one of the taglines was something to do with some websites and things like that, which I interpret as redesigning the website. And then we have other people in the community here that are very experienced in websites that rather than asking for money, we should strategize on what the criteria are for a successful website. And before we start asking to spend money, we should start looking at what the overall and overreaching strategy is. I saw a beautiful document last year. Township trademarked it. In fact, it was a successful, strategic plan for how the community is going to move forward in communicating. Communications is a very large part on the online world. And we need to take a little time instead of getting close to spending some more money, because we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on various projects, and start taking a little time to research. Or ask some people that know a little bit about something like this and start pulling them together in small little, collective committees, if you will, and get a strategic plan before you go out to bid. It's kind of like, let's go build a building before we know what we're going to spend for it. We don't want to do that. We want to know what our plan is before we start asking for money to pay for it. And I hope you guys consider that tonight when you vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other cards?
Billy Wright.
Good evening, my name is Billy Wright. I was Oscoda Township clerk for 12 years, retired from there. The boards I served on occasionally had disagreements, like most boards do, but we talked them out and sometimes agreed to disagree in a friendly manner. I'm dismayed about what is happening at these board meetings and the way some members feel that demeaning one of ours or theirs at an open township board meeting is the way to solve conflicts. This lack of civility has got to stop. I presume the attacks that has occurred has caused a good man to not seek re-election as Oscoda Township clerk. And I thank you, John Nordine, in advance for your years of service. It's appalling that none of the board members spoke up at the last meeting, July 13th, in defense of our treasurer, when Trustee Cummings and Trustee Palmer persisted in their persecution of her. Trustee Palmer needled Miss McGuire needlessly for 10 minutes or more about pounds versus gallons on an invoice. An error by the billing company was identified and acknowledged and should have been put to rest immediately. Instead, Mr. Palmer continued pressing the issue to no other purpose than to embarrass or intimidate Treasurer McGuire. Our supervisor had the authority and duty to stop this, as there is a way. But this has been a continuing pattern initiated by our supervisor months ago to discredit Ms. McGuire's good reputation. He chose to play politics this way to win Treasurer McGuire's seat so he could be the new Oscoda Township clerk, or treasurer, sorry. What an embarrassment this has been to our community and some board members. Shame on you for your actions, or should I say lack of actions.
Okay, thank you. Another card?
We have Mary Smith.
Mary Smith, Oscoda resident. I guess I'm here to explain what I did. In the July 13th Oscoda Township Board meeting, I witnessed particularly offensive behavior by Mr. Cummings. His demeaning words and attitude toward our treasurer prompted me to send him a letter, and I sent the letter to the other board members. I am seeking an apology, public apology, to Ms. McGuire for his words and his insulting behavior. I quoted some of his remarks and sent this letter to him with a cover letter to Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. I'm citing sexual harassment violation. His words did bode on sexual bias. I could have added that Supervisor Weed, who conducted the July 13th meeting, did not speak up and to stop Mr. Cummings. I think he was giving assent by silence. I hope the apology to Ms. McGuire is coming tonight. And frankly, I think Mr. Weed and Mr. Palmer should also apologize for their harassment over months of meetings in an attempt to discredit Ms. McGuire. And I hope this nasty behavior ends now. Thank you.
Thank you. Cards?
I got Francis Whitney.
Hello, Francis Whitney, Oscoda Township resident. Sexism is any expression based on the idea that persons, most often women, are inferior because of their sex. Sexism is harmful. Sexism is present in all areas of life, unfortunately. After watching the last Oscoda Township meeting, I was reminded again how truly prevalent sexism is, even in this small, beautiful community that we live in. In the age where lawyers can now be fined for calling women honey or sweetheart in U.S. courts, it is my obligation to call out Mr. Cummings out on his sexist remarks that were made in the last township meeting. Mr. Wood Cummings, calling a woman sweetheart is demeaning and disrespectful. It is the act of trying to reduce a woman to a child or a sex object, instead of as a peer or an equal. When sweetheart is used in the context that I witnessed in this last township meeting, it was used as a form of domination, trying to create a subtle shift of power, trying to reduce a woman as being powerful and legitimate. In response to the Go Balance a Checkbook statement, it was clear that the intention was to publicly humiliate Ms. McGuire, and it infers that because she is a woman, she's not capable of doing her job. Essentially, what I heard was go back to the kitchen where you belong. I challenged the board, including the supervisor, to visit the trustee expectations and guidelines as outlined in the Michigan Township Association. They are including communicating effectively, listening attentively, possessing knowledge of what constitutes ethical behavior, demonstrating behavior that results in public trust, and managing adversity and hostility effectively. That was taken directly from the website. After watching the last township meeting, I was offended as a woman, and for the first time ever, ashamed to be an Oscoda Township resident. I'm not an activist, nor am I political, but I am a person that is not afraid to stand up for what I believe is right, and that is why I felt it was important to come here today to express my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Cards?
Kathy Woosterbarth.
Well, I did want to do my comment at the second public comments, actually, but I'll do them right now. What I handed the board members was the Ethics Handbook for Michigan Municipalities. As some of the other ladies have done some research, I wanted to clarify what civility means. So to be civil in ordinary understanding means to be polite, respectful, decent, tolerant, graceful in language and gesture, tone, exercising restraint towards others, cooling the hot passions of partnerships, adversarial and personalized argument with magnanimity towards others. While there's no constitutional duty of a public official to be civil, note Article 1, Section 17 of the Michigan Constitution. In the same section in which the Due Process Clause appears, which provides the right of all individuals, firms, corporations, and voluntary associations to be fair and just treatment in the course of legislative and executive investigations, and hearings shall not be infringed. This fair and just treatment clause does not speak to civility, but civility can set the tone for demonstrating fair and just treatment in hearing and investigations. However impossible it may seem to mandate, civility might be inspired by conscientious attention to the trappings of a meeting of a public body, by the physical setting, by the rules of procedures, and the conscientious example of members of the public body themselves. So I have been involved in our township for about 4 years. I personally have experienced unfair treatment in meetings, in work sessions personally, that I felt like as a resident my voice wasn't being heard, I appreciate the public comment opportunities. I do think that our township, all boards included, zoning, planning, and our township trustees need to be more welcoming of the public and to have a more considerate expectation of the people that want to make statements or have their voices heard. And of course, I, as the other people that spoke before me, I was very disappointed and upset about the comments that happened at the previous meeting. And I spoke with Tim Cummings about that specifically, which I thought was my duty to talk to him directly. So I did that, and I do expect that our board, our township, look at some training for our boards in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other cards?
I have a card for Steve Woosterbarth, but he says he wants to do it at the second. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. He doesn't have to fill out a card to do it at the second.
Okay.
And then I have Mark Miller.
Hi, Mark Miller, live in the Villages. First, I'm going to start with a shout out to Dave Schaefer. Had a big windstorm last Sunday, and the trees were sitting on my utility lines for several days. I happened to call David because I was getting a runaround from the utilities. He sent out an email to Consumers Power, and the next day the tree was dropped. When I was out doorbelling last week, I happened to see the new bike trail. It looks nice. One thing I ask is, as they extend it, it's further away from the highway, in this case, River Road. In a prior life, I was slender, like John Nordine, and having ridden on bike paths or hiking in the woods, that road noise can get to you. So if you push it back, maybe under the power lines, or push it back further from the road, it's a little nicer experience. I listened to the PFAS Zoom meeting, and I asked that the township push harder on the Air Force. I'm concerned about the gypsy moths. It looked like the county punted. And I have some general questions tomorrow, and I'll give them to you now so you don't say I sucker punched you. For the town hall meeting, I'd like the presenters to show how much we've spent to date by category, why calls from MEDC are not being returned, why we are seeking bids on services that MEDC will do for free or at a low cost, and is it possible that we can use a college internship or somebody's thesis for part of our needs. In summary, we have a nice community, and I think we're a lot farther ahead than the county. We have a nice website. You show the supporting documentation. You publish your meetings. They're available by streaming or on demand and recorded. No one says that's above my pay grade. You completed the audit. The county's audit is still undone. And also you're having public meetings. The county, and this is the second one, the county's still doing Zoom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other cards?
That's it.
All right. Then on to the consent agenda. Any questions regarding the minutes of July 13th and minutes for July 10th?
I should note, Mr. Palmer mentioned at the Friday work session that on a portion of the regular meeting minutes that are in the packet, the date was referenced as, some of the work sessions coming up are referenced as June. They'll be coming up later this week. And based on Mr. Palmer's suggestion and comment, I changed that to July. I appreciate the suggestion, correction.
Since there isn't a copy of those revised minutes, do we assume that those are corrected?
Yeah, I didn't do the double line. I mean, it's the board's discretion. We could approve them at the next meeting, whatever the board sees fit to do. I mean, I would suggest potentially, a motion to include the change, directing me to make the change might suffice, but again, that's the board's decision to make.
Okay, any comments regarding payment of bills for $89,100.69? Motion on the consent agenda.
I actually wanted to go over the second quarter financial report. Oh, sorry about that. That I presented. I did the last quarter at the previous meeting, but because I didn't add it to the agenda last time, I didn't get a chance to cover it. So this time it'll be on there. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at it this time, but I just wanted to touch on a key things that were sticking out to me when I did put this together. With the revenue, despite the revenue sharing being up this quarter over last year's quarter at this time, we still were down about $105,000 approximately, and this was due to the contribution to the police fund being done in the first quarter this year instead of the second quarter last year. In fund number 236 in 2019, we're down a little, or this year we're down a little bit, but that was because in 2019 we had a few sales of fixed assets that were included in that. In 509, we're down obviously because of COVID and the shutdown, so we had a little bit less revenue to start the year with Old Orchard Park being shut down until unusually longer this year. Fund number 591, water is up, and that's based on USDA grant money for the water projects that's been coming in as compared to last year's second quarter. As far as the expenses, there's a couple of big chunks. Actually, I'm surprised somebody didn't point that one out. We're down due to the contribution in 101 due to the police department in the same quarter last year. It was done in the first quarter. And as far as in water, we are up about $320,000, and that's in expenses because of the water meters that we purchased and the cost of water from Hushra also. Just a few things I wanted to point out.
Is that budget items or finance?
Budget, as far as my figures, they are in the revenues and expenses for the budget.
I can learn to understand you.
All right, does anybody have anything else? Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Well, changes in the minutes?
Yeah, with John's monthly changes. I think he should be forgiven. He spent time in the Upper Peninsula, and that has an effect on people.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byers, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes, motion's passed. Subcommittee reports, project updates.
All right, I'm going to be going through these pretty quickly. The budget work session number 2 for 2021, that is on Wednesday here at the library at 2 p.m. Budget work session number 3 is Thursday here at the library at 2 p.m. And again, both of those work sessions, we already have it lined up. That's why I have the agenda in there. We have all the different department heads coming in here as far as talking about the capital improvement items as well as the operating budget. So you will see supporting documentation going out on that. The utility operating report, if you don't look at anything else, look at page 25 of your packet, and that shows the 2020 work order service calls. And overwhelmingly, when you look at the total work orders of 1,002 work orders, 322 of those are turning on services. So they spend a tremendous amount of time going out there seasonally turning those on. Again, you will see the turn off number of 34 right now. That will go up after Labor Day. So you can kind of see that. I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Cummings as far as the recap of the RAB from last Wednesday, the 22nd of July.
It is actually to Aaron.
Oh, to Aaron, I'm sorry.
So at the RAB, the Air Force discussed what they were going to do with the funding they received from Congress. Less than half of it was going to go into remediation. Another portion, the biggest portion of it, was to go into more research and data gathering. We expressed our displeasure with that most of it should go into remediation projects since they already have enough data. Eagle had some very good comments relating to their issues they're having with the Air Force, along with Mike Munson at the Airport Authority. So their next step now is to Air Force and Eagle to figure out what they're going to do for remediation. They have projected that by the time they let contracts and then work gets completed, they might have some additional remediation going by 2022. Gypsy moths.
All right, so on the gypsy moths, most recently, the board has seen at least 4 emails on the gypsy moth scourge. And so the county has decided to leave it up to the individual municipalities to address this issue. Most recently this afternoon, the board got a copy of the report from the consultant that was hired by Iosco County to develop a plan on the gypsy moth scourge. And so what that was delivered to the county in January of 2020, and that was to set up spraying or treatment for the spring of 2020. Unfortunately, none of that treatment ever got done. The western part of the county in Plainfield Township, Grand Township, there are serious problems with the gypsy moth scourge, and unfortunately seems to be moving in an easterly fashion. And so with the county commissioners deciding that the individual municipalities were going to have to address this individually, Plainfield Township has kind of put together 2 different options as far as a millage or an assessment district associated with this. I've been kind of sending the board all of the models associated with that, and time permitting, I'm hoping to either, discuss that in further detail at the budget work session for Wednesday or Thursday. But all of that information as far as what is available, I've been sending that out to the board. The update on the TAP grant award for Phase 3 of the Iosco Exploration Trail, which is the bike path project. And again, what I have in the packet here is the conditional commitment that MDOT is awarding $1,074,392 in TAP funds, and TAP is the Transportation Alternatives Program. And so right now, that would extend the bike path from the schools to Foot Village, basically at the county's building right now where they keep the groomer for the snowmobile trails. There's already an established parking lot there. And so that $1,074,000 It takes a year to be able to bid the project, get the project out, get the federal funds all lined up. It will be construction in spring of 2022, and that's right now. In the monthly report provided by Rowe Engineering last meeting, there was a whole detail of all the different funding that is associated that they are trying to track down and seek out for additional funds associated with Phase 3 of the bike path. And as any other additional funding is secured, we will definitely keep the board apprised. Right now, to do Phase 3 of the bike path, it would be that the township committed $200,000 to make that happen. And again, as Trustee Palmer pointed out last Friday, the paperwork needs to say that the Iosco County is dedicating $50,000, and I'm trying to get that updated. What you will see for update number 7 is the CWSRF, which is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, and this is sanitary sewer improvements. And again, the project will not be finalized until an August 20th public hearing in Lansing. But right now, the township has been pre-awarded $1,168,800, or 24% loan forgiveness for the sanitary sewer improvements that total $4,870,000. And those project costs are going to take at a minimum 3 years to be able to complete all of the upgrades to the pump stations and the controls in the pump stations, as well as a sanitary sewer lagoon improvement. So we will be moving forward within that process. Cross your fingers nothing happens between now and August 20th, that pre-awarded nearly $1.2 million comes to fruition from Eagle. Want to remind the board and the public that the Downtown Summit is tomorrow, Tuesday, the 28th of July. We have 2 sessions, one at 4 p.m. and one at 7 p.m., and both will be at the Warrior Pavilion. So there will be various presentations and an overview of the downtown redevelopment strategy. And finally, we have number 9, which is the July 2020 update from the Economic Improvement Director.
Hi, good evening, everybody. First thing I'll do is introduce our CDAM fellow. We hired, he came on board June 8th, correct, officially. Some training ensued. CDAM kept him at home for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then after the 4th of July, joined us here locally. So welcome, Ryan Mattis. Just as a reminder, he's on a grant program through CDAM. CDAM is the Community Economic Development Association of Michigan, whereby they pay 90% of Ryan's salary to be here for the next 15 months. So it sounded like there were some concerns about how much money we're spending, and I want to remind the board and the general public that Ryan is here 90% free to us. So I think that's good stuff. The dashboard updates in your packet, you'll see the overall dashboard and the play sleep updates, the supporting documentation. As I've said the last couple of months, we've been chugging along. Some of this is longer lead times, so maybe it doesn't feel like some of those needles are moving too much. But I assure you, there's a lot of hard work grinding that information out and grinding the task out. Ryan's been hard at work doing some of the guided development tasks that get us in a better place with the RRC, as well as some of the board approval and the board training documentation that has to go into that. The good news is, I think in another 30 days or so, I wrote here on your dashboard that by the end of August, I think we're going to be able to complete 18 more tasks. So while they've been in process for a little while, I think we'll see the finish line on those. And that would move our total completed up to 59%. So I think that's a nice big leap there. The downtown strategies, I think we'll be able to move to something that looks like 35% complete. So again, I think another significant jump there. And very happy to report that with respect to the RRC, we have 0 tasks that haven't been started. We are fully launched in all of our tasks And if you give me 2 more months, I think we'll be in the neighborhood of 84% complete. So that's a big jump. Interestingly enough, I think one of the last remaining tasks that will get us RRC certified, and it is a requirement, is to have the new township website done. So that's not really option. It's optional if you don't want RRC. If you want RRC, it's in the manual, says you got to do it. I think we could be done with most of our stuff by December. I guess we'll wait and see how the new website process plays out and how long that holds us up. From a projects perspective, I think there's still I think quite a bit of good activity in the marketplace. There's next month I'm going to actually adjust this a little bit, and I'm going to give you an active projects, and then we're going to talk about closed or won projects. We've actually got a couple of projects now that I could put in the win category, and things that we've lost, so that we can you can better understand what happens throughout the pipeline instead of just this number. 1 month it's 15, and then it's 14. What happened? Give you a better way to track that. But good news is, I mean, we have 3 really solid entities that are looking at mixed-use projects in town that include some sort of retail component with residential upstairs. I think, they're legitimately interested. They're not just kicking tires, and we're trying to move through that process. And a developer we continually have conversations with about a multifamily project that would sit outside of downtown. So there is genuine interest in Oscoda, and we're working hard to bring those projects to fruition for everybody. Any questions about the dashboard? Okay.
So next meeting, you're gonna give us a list of various projects.
I'm gonna change this. I'll change this project chart here. We're gonna do 2. I'll give you an active projects, and then basically a closed projects, and we're going to look at closed with won, lost, canceled, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So, other things not related to RRC or the dashboard. We've been in discussions with the EIC about the property disposition, where we go from a brokerage perspective in the EIC. Elected to punt another month and decide. We basically went out for RFP. We've got 2 proposals, one local but not within Oscoda Township, and then one from out of town. So they wanted to get more comfortable with both of their credentials before making a final decision. So that is still at large. And we received 2 quotes for the Albany Medical building appraisal. 1 quote. The EIC wasn't real comfortable with that price and decided to kick that can down the road too for another month instead of jumping right into the bucket of spending more money. So more to come on that, and hope to have an update for you in August. As it relates to work that we are doing with Digital 55, we've got a pretty significant investor coming in town interested in things related to the spaceport licensure and launch initiatives. I have 8 data sheets, primarily property owned by the township, that will finally be in sort of that finalized bucket we'll be able to present to them. That was part of their scope, and so I think by the end of the week I'll be able to check this property data sheets off of our bucket list and be able to move from there. You'll also see, as part of the Play Sleep strategies, we were to do a parking map that we could promote the downtown with, and you'll see that in your packet as well. That's been accepted by the EIC, and I provide that to you for informational purposes. The microsite is coming along, and we're probably at about 50% complete. And honestly, with guided development initiatives and the spaceport and getting ready for the North American Space Summit, Ryan and I have some to-do tasks that really are on our plate to get that microsite kind of to the finish line, so they're not the holdup. We have a little bit of a log jam internally, and we'll clean that up here very soon. Downtown Summit, Mr. Schaefer was kind enough to take care of that for me. The North American Space Summit is still on, as far as I know, August 30th through September 2nd. And then, and I think this last item is fairly significant. You're going to be asked to make a decision on RFQ or an RFP for civil engineering services so that we can take our site-ready grant from the airport, move that to the next level. We get the site planning work done from that engineer. That allows us to then go and apply for lots of grant money that the EDA is trying to give out here in the state of Michigan. So spending a little gains us a lot. And then lastly, maybe more important for our small businesses that may be watching or paying attention to these updates, the MEDC did release their second round of grant funding. I believe that application opened up on July 15th. It is good through August 5th. I encourage all of our small business to make application. I'll also remind everyone that the application originally said that if you were awarded a grant previously, you were not eligible this time, and the MEDC is in the process of changing that. So I'm encouraging folks to still apply, even if you did receive money. As a reminder, Iosco County had a bucket of $49,900 in round one to work with, spread out to the small businesses. Our county this time around has $815,000 to work with. So if the small businesses were a little disappointed maybe at the awards they received last time, there's a lot more money to go around, and I would encourage the businesses to make an application. We should have awards out. I'm hoping the second week of August we'll have some idea of who's been awarded. I think that's the end. Any more questions?
So the board understands Todd and the chamber director for Tawas are serving on the committee to be able to process these small business applications for loan, or I'm sorry, for grant. So this is not a loan, just grant. And so the county does not have any regional economic development initiative. And so Todd and the Tawas Chamber Director are the ones going through these applications and trying to understand how $815,000 is getting divvied. And I think that's fantastic that we have a seat at that table to be helping to evaluate and make those decisions for the small businesses.
So recently you sent out invitations to like different businesses to be included in a welcoming package.
That's correct, yes.
So are you working in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce? Because I thought they had something like that already.
They have something that's close. So we're taking what they had and we're going to add a few things to it and call it good. So yes, and I have coordinated with June regarding that. What they're, I'm sorry, what that welcome, but theirs is more of a community profile, and what it lacks is, if you're a new contractor coming into town, and we have a lot of those, where do I go find housing? It doesn't really talk about that, so that's the piece that we're sort of adding to it. And so we've done some outreach to find out who's out there.
So it'll be one packet with everything worked into it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's some other initiatives that Play Sleep lays out, do monthly welcoming meetings and rotate around the bars and the restaurants in town and set up monthly or quarterly tours. And so there's a lot of things. It's right in the Play Sleep strategies outline. So you can kind of refer to that section and it'll line by line kind of like what we're trying to get accomplished there.
When you say contractor, you mean like a contract employee coming in to work for a business as opposed to like a developer contractor type?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, employees that Coletta would hire or maybe that the township would hire as their economic improvement director, those types of things. Because when I got here, I didn't know where to, other than the hotel, I wasn't sure where I should go find a rental unit. It's not really out there, so we're trying to change that and make that easier for folks who are coming into town.
Todd, did I understand you to say that the RRC certification would be complete by December with the exception of the website?
My goal is to have the things that I can control all buttoned up and done by December. Yeah.
Only outstanding point would be the website design.
The website, and then the master plan getting updated is probably another little bit longer lead item, and I'm not sure what the plan. I don't want to speak on behalf of the planning commission or what their goal is. I know they're working very hard and they want to get it done as fast as they can as well. Yes. But the things I can control, I would love it if I said I have my RRC things buttoned up by December.
That would be great.
Cool, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
Thank you.
All right, I got an item to add on here that on the 22nd of July, I had testified in front of the Michigan Legislature's Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, along with other PFAS-affected Michigan residents and Michigan scientists about their decision as to whether they were going to lower PFAS limits in drinking water or not. And just after that meeting, they did actually approve those. So within 7 days of that date, they became effective. And the ones that affect us are, there was 7 of them that were on the list. Of the ones that affect us, PFOA was lowered to 8 parts per trillion. PFOS was lowered to 16 parts per trillion. PFHXS was lowered to 51 parts per trillion, and PFBS was lowered to 420 parts per trillion. I said all of those were lowered. Actually, only 2 of those were regulated at a high level, which is 200 and 400 parts per trillion. The others weren't even on the list at all. So that's a huge plus for trying to get safe water to people. To answer Mark Miller's question regarding the bike path distance from River Road, the project is planned to have that bike path about 150 to 250 feet, 150 to 200 feet off of the roadway, but it depends on the property boundaries and the geography. Some places it has to come in close, other places we can push it out farther. The concept is that we have the bike path far enough away that it's like you are in the woods, but not so far away that you don't lose some sort of security or sense of where you are by being able to still notice the road. Plus, it's an aspect of advertisement that people traveling through will see that we have a bike path, and usually bike paths are very desirable to people who want to move here or move their businesses here. Does anybody have anything else to add? Okay, and then on to superintendent's report. Thank you very much.
He's gonna stay up there in case there's
This is a
questions
proposal for housing markets demand study.
on the next couple here. So if he's got more to chime in, I'm gonna let him chime in on this as well. So your packet contains a $7,000 proposal to be paid out of property owned M Fund 236-266-801.000 for professional services from Vote Strategic Insights associated with delivering a housing study for the township's continued pursuit of working with a developer to construct a multi-family rental project. The Economic Improvement Committee has reviewed the proposal and recommends the township move forward with completing this work. Township board members will also note that the Director of Economic Improvement and the Township Superintendent have been pursuing housing developers continuously for the last 20-plus months. Every developer prospected has requested third-party data or reports that substantiate our claim that the township needs more market-rate rental housing options in our community. The housing market demand studies are commonplace in development industry to convince housing developers that prospective projects will be successful for them and the community and are used to pursue and obtain project financing. Your packet also contains a template professional services contract agreement that will be used as the basis for a contractual relationship with the township and Vote Strategic Insights. If approved by the township board, Vote Strategic Insights is prepared to execute the professional services contract agreement and begin work immediately. If approved, the housing market demand study would be completed within 45 to 60 days and be included in an upcoming packet for the regularly scheduled township board meeting.
Any comments?
Did we go out for an RFP for this?
We do not use an RFP. We obtained other quotes. This one was the cheapest. They range, and correct me if I'm wrong, we had one for $29,000, one for $18,000, and one for $8,000 besides the $7,000.
I don't think that wasn't included in the packet.
No, only the Vote Strategic, they're the lowest, and this is what they do. They do these studies in all 50 states.
This is what the EIC brought forward to the board.
Correct.
Do you know the names of the 2 other people that you got bids from?
There were 3 total that we got proposals from. Anderson Economic Development Group, I think it's North Point, they're out of Traverse City. The Anderson Group is, they're out of Lansing, Michigan. And the third, I remember the contact's name, but the organization, that escapes my top of mind. They're somewhere down in mid-state, like Flint, Saginaw area.
So we had a target market analysis done for Oscoda County in 2016. I know it's a few years old, and I think we've talked about this before. Is there any way to contact that group from Mid-Michigan? I believe it's Land Use USA.
Oh,
Maybe that
sorry,
was it.
That's who did. They were the $29,000 or the $18,000 proposal.
Now, would they update what they have already for a cheaper price? The information that they provided the county already?
It's not convincing. We've showed that to multiple developers. That's not a convincing type of argument. If you look at the proposal, what they're actually going to do is what they call a primary market area. And so when they did a study in Oscoda, the primary market area was defined as Greenbush down to Tawas. When there was a rehab of the low-income housing behind McDonald's, that Vote Strategic Insight actually did the market study for that developer to be able to show the demand of the housing. And so that was focused on low-income subsidized housing, and this is for market rate housing, not tax credit, not subsidized. This is market rate housing. And that is what we need to be able to show to the developers, to show this is the occupancy rate, these are the amenities, this is the rent you can get, and if you want to charge more, you got to provide these amenities. If you want to charge less, use these amenities. This is the type of study that will be convincing to a developer to be able to show the facts as far as the demand for market rate rental housing.
That's a huge disparity, 29,000 and 8,000 or 7.
It is.
You're not concerned about that? We're not getting much for 7 or 8,000?
Their scope is very detailed, and they scoped out what we would expect any of them to do.
Yep. Okay.
So I don't think that we're missing out on any services, or that they missed anything in the scope.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of these firms are used to dealing with the MEDC or a state-run agency, and so they can charge more to the state than they can a township.
Gotcha.
Or a smaller municipality.
Any other comments?
I mean, I'll add just one consideration here for your thoughts. There probably isn't a community in the state of Michigan, particularly northern Michigan, that wouldn't tell you that they have a housing issue. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at ourselves as a community, remember that for whatever we're trying to do, whether we're trying to bring a housing project here, or we're trying to bring the next manufacturer here, or the next retailer here, whatever services we're trying to grow our community in, there are other communities trying to find that same developer to do it in their town too. So in essence, we're competing with the developer's attention for their dollars, and we want them to bring them here versus Kalkaska, Alpena, or somewhere else. This is one more tool in our toolbox that says, hey, we've got our act together. We can prove the data. Come to Oscoda because your project's going to be successful. Here are the numbers. It's not just hearsay. Whereas, again, the other communities want their dollars too.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the housing market demand study by Vote Strategic Insights in the amount of $7,000.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Byer. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Request to advertise for professional civil engineering services.
All right, so your packet contains a 7-page request for qualifications, an RFQ for professional civil engineering services. Within the project introduction of the RFQ, the township is clear that the selected engineering firm will need to perform grant administration due to the infrastructure improvements determined necessary tied to future grant funding opportunities. Board members will note that the Oscoda Wordsmith Airport Authority is the grant recipient for the MEDC's Site Readiness Grant. The township would serve as the sub-grantee. This arrangement has been approved by the MEDC's senior project manager associated with the Site Readiness Grant, and this arrangement is obtaining final approval from the MEDC legal team. Basically, they want to be able to see this grant used, but they understand that the township owns the infrastructure, and the township is going to have to play a part in being able to have this study done. So your packet contains a string of emails from the airport manager and the MEDC senior project manager. Township owns the infrastructure within Oscoda Wordsmith Airport property and would be the ultimate grant recipient for future infrastructure expansion, allowing further expansion of the industrial park development opportunities. In addition, any costs exceeding the MEDC Site Readiness Grant would need to be discussed with both the Township Board and the Airport Authority Board. This is a joint effort with benefits for both the Township and the airport moving forward. If approved by the Township Board, the timeline would be to advertise tomorrow, Tuesday, the 28th of July, and accept RFQ responses from engineering firms through Tuesday, the 25th of August, 2020. This would allow ample time to evaluate the RFQ responses and bring a recommendation to the Township Board for approval at the 14th of September 2020 regularly scheduled board meeting.
Comments?
How does this differ from what we're already getting from Rowe as far as generating grants, so forth?
So the infrastructure evaluation, right now, this is going to set up, the federal agency is the EDA, and the EDA is not going to give you money to maintain your infrastructure. However, if you need to expand your infrastructure to support and bring jobs, then Wordsmith has already shown previous success in entering into EDA grant agreements and expand the job basis. And that's what the EDA wants to see. Right now, the federal government is pumping a lot of money into the EDA. Where the EDA grants start right now are 50-50. Right now, because of the influx of federal dollars, that's going up to 80% EDA, 20% township. And that's when we want to get in for potential expansion of the industrial park opportunities. And what you see there in that proposal is a map of the current sanitary sewer, water, and the storm sewer. And what this would do would put hypothetical scenarios out there as far as being able to expand into other proposed sites. And what you'll see in there on page 87 of the packet in there are envisioned future development sites as far as where does it make sense for current expansion of the utilities and the infrastructure based on where the current infrastructure lies. And so this is using the MEDC's Site Readiness Grant money that's already been awarded to the airport to formally explore those options and understand what that's going to take to expand the industrial park out there.
By getting ourselves prepared for expansion at the airport, of course, if you go back upstream to from the water and the sewer, we're actually upgrading and making opportunities more available throughout the whole base, or not the whole base, but that whole industrial area for our existing companies to be able to take advantage of better infrastructure. So the end game is at the airport, but along the way, we've improved our infrastructure for our existing businesses.
And recently, we had a situation where we had to do something similar. I can't recall exactly what that was, but we had to do an RFQ for engineering services. And it seems to me it turned out that Roe was the only one that, that entered that.
And that
But
was
it
actually.
required under the program that we were looking to.
And that was for the CWSRF associated,
Yes,
that's Eagle's
yes.
requirement that if you're gonna include engineering within that grant, you have to go out and request RFQs for other engineering services. I guess they found that, municipalities tend to only go with or engineer of record, and Eagle wants to see that, okay, you're going out for qualifications for other engineering firms if you want to include those engineering costs within that project.
And so is this similar to that requirement, or that they want to have to see an RFQ?
Well, the EDA, if
Yeah.
you're going to include engineering costs within that, yes, you have to go out to RFQ to be able to solicit competitive bids for, competitive qualifications from those engineering firms.
Dave, whoever we select on this, unless I've missed it, what is the length of time we will have this association with the winner of this engineering service contest?
Through the EDA portion, I mean, ultimately, we're seeking an EDA grant to do this.
Yep.
I don't know if you've ever seen an EDA application, the feds, it's a monstrosity of a document to be able to put that together.
Okay.
And so, that application process is months long to be able to put that together, and submit that for review under the EDA. The, airport has previously gotten 2 EDA grants, and they're large documents to be able to submit that.
So are we talking about 5 years?
I hope not. I hope
Okay.
not 5 years.
Will this be outlined, the time factor, somewhere in the agreement?
Yeah, and what we want the companies to be able to solicit is previous examples of, grant administration, so that we have an understanding of these, successful projects. We can obviously talk to those different municipalities about their experiences with the engineering firms.
But we are going to have to, when we sign on the dotted line for whoever we select, we are gonna have to sign a contract that says this relationship between the engineering company and Oscoda Township shall last 5 years, 3 years, something like that.
I think instead of a time frame,
Yeah.
it would be project-based.
Okay, completing projects, okay.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve advertising for proposals for civil engineering services.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Request to advertise RFQ for website redesign.
All right, so your packet contains a request for proposals for professional services associated with the township's website redesign. Township board members will note the previous discussions associated with the need to update the current website. The packet also contains the template professional services contract agreement that will serve as the basis for the contractual relationship with the township and the successful bidder. If approved by the township board, the sealed bids are due by Thursday, the 13th of August. And based on our discussion last week, it's being requested we change that 5 p.m. deadline on the 13th of August to the 4 p.m. on the 13th of August. And this would allow enough time for the township to evaluate the bids received and provide a recommendation to the township board by the 24th of August regularly scheduled meeting. The advertisement of the proposals for website redesign service requires township board approval.
So I'm sure most of us remember that we have discussed our website and our expectations of the website at work sessions that we had 3 years ago.
Yes.
Some of us have been to some training sessions regarding municipal websites, and some of us have experience with websites in general. And the process of this is no different than what we do when we go through the process of an engineering project. So no, we are not building a building and then trying to figure out what we're doing. There's a lot more to it than that.
Is it helpful though to have like an idea, like we did go through with a building and say, these are our needs, these are the necessities, those type of things?
That will all be part of the process.
Before we pick a person?
So if you look at the general project scope, there are bullets in there
Yeah, yeah.
that create the deliverable. And then we ask them to state, you know, we're looking for minimum qualifications from what we would expect from a successful bidder.
So are those people going to go to each department and say, what would you like your webpage to look like as part of the township?
So in there, it talks about migrate content from existing site. So there will have to be content, what's valid, what's not, and migrate the valid information on that website to the new one. And there will be a template and a format. If the board remembers, the ultimate deliverable from the community branding and marketing strategy, there was actually a template in there with font and desired colors, and that schematic would obviously be implemented within the new website based on that community branding and marketing strategy.
Do you want to talk about how you're going to go through that process?
I was gonna say, Ryan, if he
Move
has
to
the
the podium.
experience, I mean,
Hey, Ryan Mattis, CDAM fellow. The process, I've already begun to go through our website a little bit and look at existing content and doing a lot of comparisons with other similar municipalities across the state, looking at especially the RRC requirements. There's lots of content that needs to be added to be in line with the RRC. And so just making sure that there's room within that schematic, within that template to add all that content, make it more navigable, if that's a word I can use, navigable. But just make it user-friendly, make it a marketing piece as well as the place where we can find all the content we're looking for to run the township. So.
Yep. In any process of going through a website design, it's not we're hiring somebody and they're going to give us a website, there you go, I hope you like it. No, it's going to be all about that company coming to us and saying, where do you want your category tree? How do you want that outlined? Where do you want this content here? How do you want it broken up into certain sections? What images do you want where? All that framework, and then how the WYSIWYG's going to work on the backside of it so that our township staff can actually make minor adjustments that we need to make to it, such as adding information, removing information, changing paragraphs, changing out pictures, photographs, changing a button if we need to. Any major framework work would have to be done, of course, by the professional company because we don't have anybody who is that advanced in website language.
Yes, well said. To make it user-friendly for township staff as well as people visiting the website is the end goal.
And based off of the RFQ, do you, Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Mattis, Mr. Dickerson, whoever, do you feel comfortable that you can make a decision, differentiate the different respondents based off of these qualifications? You can use those to separate a good applicant from a bad. I mean, built into the RFP, we feel like this is a good way to make a decision.
Yeah, and we're asking the firms to provide experience, portfolio of work, as well as references. And so if they've done other municipal websites, we can go to those municipal websites. We can call the administration of those municipalities and ask about, hey, how was your experience with this company? And so that's why we're asking for that information while we evaluate the proposals. The other part of this is Ryan and Todd are very busy working to produce the end products required by the RRC to meet their best practice criteria. You look at the last step of 90% of that criteria, it's put on your website, and put on your website, and put on your website. So even if we don't have those components done yet, we're gonna be building that website so that when those components are done, boom, it's right up there. And we know the end result of where we want everything to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's many communities in the state of Michigan who are RRC certified, so using what they've done, what looks good, what doesn't look good, what's functional, what isn't functional is, I mean, we're already off to a pretty good start in terms of guidelines and what our expectation would be. Because there's communities out there that are RRC that you look at their website and you're like, it's not the best website I've seen. And you look at others and go, wow, that's really slick, that looks good, that's inviting. So benchmarking other communities, I think, is a huge step for us, or a huge important step for us.
I agree. It's similar to what Mr. Weed said a number of years ago. An outcome of one of the work sessions that we discussed this was for board members to go do that very thing, go look around what websites seem like you're doing a good job, what works, what doesn't work from the board member's perspective. So I remember going through that process.
When we did it
And
for
was
the
helpful.
parks, we solicited from different engineering firms and picked one. They created designs and we made adjustments and.
Yeah, and I don't expect we would select a firm sight unseen. I mean, I expect this to be an interview process, come in, tell us, show us your shiny toy, why should I buy yours and not someone else's? Or so there may be some other searches that you would buy based on purely on qualifications. So I expect this process to be very interactive with the people who are interested in our decision-making process.
Are you also considering the maintainability of it? I think there was a comment made about, how easy it was going to be for someone to add content from the township side.
Very important, because things are changing, I mean, every week,
Right.
from a development perspective, every week something's kind of evolving, changing. We were notified, was it Monday, that we've got this investor coming in on Thursday, and hey, I want to go look at this, and this, and it just drops in your lap. You've got to react to it, you've got to respond to it. So we're always manipulating, changing things and editing things. Got to get it back on the website.
The sixth bullet on page 96 of your packet said, provide a back-end feature that is user-friendly and offers the ability for staff to load various content items, photos, add pages, update calendars, events, videos, graphs, tables, etc. with easy formatting options. So that's what we're looking for.
That's good.
Yep, so we would have that, we'd be able to have a conversation if there is a need, if we, to establish that we can do some things in-house, we can, provide some of those updates, we can update content, but if there is a bigger issue, we're able to call them and troubleshoot those things with them, work collaboratively that way.
So as has been mentioned, the topic of website redesign, replacement, upgrade, whatever you want to call it, has been a topic for a number of years. One of the features that we were discussing years ago was the idea that, so yes, we can update it ourselves, but can we get a periodic, some frequency of maybe quarterly or every half a year, to have the vendor come in and do a review of what we have changed to make sure that what we have done is actually consistent with what should have been done. Keeping in mind that the updates that we're talking about the township doing is really to kind of save us money and to be responsive to our needs in a timely manner. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we might implement it in the best way possible. So is that a feature that you're looking at as well? I know it's not something that every vendor offers. So something of a review, periodic review.
You can certainly add it if the board is passionate about that feature.
I think it's worth adding, whether or not a respondent will respond with saying they can do it or not, it's worth
Right.
evaluating on that basis. You know, we could even be blown away by somebody who doesn't provide that and say, hey, we still want to go with you, but I think it's worth evaluating based on that criteria.
Yeah, the intention is to just try to keep from deviating too far over a period of time. And then having, a year, 2, 3 down the road, having it look nothing like we started.
Glacier evolution, right?
Yeah.
Wait a minute,
something
that's not
like
what we
that.
started with.
Right, right.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve advertising for proposals associated with website design.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes.
How wide of a advertisement net for the proposals, or do you plan to do? Do you have a list that you're already looking at of people?
There have been firms who have called on us asking if we plan to do any future updates. We plan to revise our website. So, I mean, people who have come to us, and then just through our normal, marketing channels of advertising it, putting it on our website.
We would send it obviously to the current provider as well.
There are hundreds, thousands of website providers, probably within a 100-mile radius. I'm not really wild about spending all of my time hunting down 1,000 of these folks to make
Right.
sure they know about our RFP. If they're doing their job, finding opportunities, they'll see it, they'll call us.
And Jamie, I got a couple information sheets from the MTA conference and, the people that have booths there that talk, that obviously do municipal websites. We're gonna be sending them to.
And as we've grown our relationship with MCOG and NEMCOG, we typically are sending these RFPs to our counterparts, our peers in those regions, and those other communities, because they likely have had work done. If you like to work on it, pass this along to them. So, we do try to get outside of the community with things like that.
Do you include the community though too, if there's somebody here qualified?
Well, absolutely. Definitely. I got 0 responses for the brokerage RFP, 0, and I made sure every single firm in town knew about it.
All right, roll call?
That was Mr. Palmer's motion, Mr. Cummings' support?
Correct.
Is that correct? Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Old Orchard Park credits and refunds for seasonal lots.
All right, so your packet contains a string of emails detailing the credits and refunds associated with the 192 seasonal lots at Old Orchard Park due to the governor's executive orders associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Board members will remember previous discussions associated with OOP being closed to seasonal campers from the 1st of May 2020 through Sunday, the 21st of June 2020. Campers that paid for seasonal lots had the option to extend their 2020 camping season, obtain a credit that can be applied towards the 2021 camping season, or obtain a refund for the days Old Orchard Park was closed to seasonal campers due to the unforeseen circumstances. None of the 192 seasonal lot owners chose to extend their 2020 camping season. 93 seasonal lot owners chose to obtain credits totaling $32,690.84 towards the 2021 camping season next year. And 99 seasonal lot owners chose to be refunded for a total of $39,684.44. Based on the information detailed, the board is being requested to authorize the clerk to book the credits into the financial management software against 2021 Old Orchard Park revenue and authorize the treasurer to cut 99 refund checks to Old Orchard Park seasonal lot owners. This requires township board approval.
Comments?
I would just point out there's a slight mistake in the number for the 99 refund checks. That should be $39,648.44.
Transposed, I'm sorry. hold on, so $39,648.44.
Yes,
Thank you, Bill.
that's what I added up.
Let me.
Any other comments or a motion?
I move that we authorize the clerk to book the 93 credits totaling $32,690.84 against 2021 Old Orchard Park revenue, and to authorize the treasurer to cut the 99 refund checks totaling $39,648.44 to Old Orchard Park seasonal lot owners.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Gasky.
Yes.
Ms. McGuire.
Yes.
Mr. Byer.
Yes.
Mr. Cummings.
Yes.
Mr. Palmer.
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Request to increase 2020 appropriations for Old Orchard Park Fund 509.
All right, so based on the previous action item, $39,648.44 worth of refunds for seasonal lot owners was not incorporated into the 2020 appropriations for Old Orchard Park Fund 509. The 2020 COVID-19 pandemic and corresponding restrictions from the executive orders issued by the governor's office could not have been predicted. The clerk has already created a new line within the general ledger for Old Orchard Park Fund 509. It's line 509-000-964.000 for rebates and refunds. I'm requesting the Township Board authorize an increase to the 2020 appropriations for Old Orchard Park Fund 509 by $39,649. For line 509-000-964.000, bringing total 2020 appropriations for Fund 509 from $898,900 up to $938,549. This requires Township Board approval.
Comments?
And again, that is to consider approving the requested $39,649.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we do approve the requested increase of $39,649 for the Old Orchard Park Fund 509.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer.
Yes.
Mr. Gasky.
Yes.
Ms. McGuire.
Yes.
Mr. Cummings.
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Byer.
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Resolution 2020-16, zoning ordinance 165 publication.
All right, so your packet contains the resolution 2020-16. And what you'll see in here is we are asking that the board approves ordinance 165 in its entirety. And this was initiative from the previous zoning administrator, in 2019, carried through the current zoning administrator in 2020. And that was to update the ordinance 165 in its entirety. Basically, that hadn't been done since about 2015. So to incorporate all those different changes was quite the process. And the version that link takes you to was the bound version that was distributed, and I sent that out a couple weeks ago, but that was based on all of the updates through March of 2020. And so it's a very lengthy document. I didn't include all of Ordinance 165. Your packet would have been a lot more than 139 pages. The link is on our website, and the link is in that resolution, and that is what we're trying to approve in its entirety. So the board has approved, and the planning commission has made recommendations to the board to make all of these modifications. This is just approving that in its entirety for the zoning ordinance 165.
Comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2020-16.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Recommendation to hire part-time library assistant.
All right, so the board understands the board accepted the resignation of the part-time library assistant back in April. And so since we've posted for that position, we conducted interviews on July 16th. And there is a memo dated the 16th of July from the librarian recommending that the Robin Savage be recommended as the part-time library assistant. This position is the vacant position for 16 hours a week, and upon board approval, Diana is asking that Robin starts on this Wednesday, the 29th. So if you're here for the budget work session, you might get to meet Robin.
Comments?
Yes, Friday, Mr. Gieske asked about a background check, to which I went back to my office, checked with the deputy clerk, Shelley Kimselt, and she had already performed it. Miss London had given her the information, and, yep, so, all taken care of.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Robin G. Savage as a part-time library assistant starting July 28th, 2020.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
It says the 29th, not the 28th to start.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I can't read my own writing, 29th.
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Request from the CVB for use of Furtaw Field.
Right. So what you have in here is a request from the CVB, and you'll note that this is in very similar fashion to a request from the chamber. And so the CVB is requesting permission to host the Northeast Coast Beer Festival at Furtaw Field Saturday, September 12th, 2020. And the festival, they're asking that the vendors can set up on Friday, the 11th, and Saturday is the festival from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then there is cleanup the Sunday, September 13th. And so this event is through the Michigan Brewers Guild. And so the UP Beer Festival has been canceled in Marquette, and the vendors are looking for an alternate place to host the North Coast Beer Festival.
Comments?
I just had one question under the COVID-19 policies and procedures. The next to the last one, it said the vendors allowed to wear PPE masks if desired. Seems as though the vendors should be required to wear masks, although I know it's outdoors. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think the PPE is required if you can't maintain that 6 feet. But I can send it back to them and say that the board approved this with that bullet point changed from allowed to vendors required
Okay.
to wear PPE masks.
If that does go there, is to be required if medically tolerated.
Okay, so let me write this. Get that down for you. PPE if medically tolerated. You got it.
Their insurance is gonna cover 3 days or 2?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Their insurance is gonna cover 3 days?
It should cover all the days that they're there, including
Yeah.
setup and tear
Because
down.
they're setting up Friday. Gonna cover it for 3 days.
Require insurance. Okay, I can make sure.
Does anybody have any other comments or a motion?
I move that we grant the request from the CDB for the use of Furtaw Field for this Brewers Festival.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Liquid calcium chloride bill payment.
All right. I am bringing up the email that I sent to the board. Basically, Trustee Palmer had contacted the liquid calcium chloride, and they have agreed to accept the 55-cent price per gallon for the 4,519 gallon load, and that reduces the previously submitted bill by $135. I then got, obviously late Friday afternoon when I sent that out, and I have the bill for 4,519 gallons at 55 cents per gallon is $2,485.45 to be paid to liquid calcium chloride.
Yes.
Any comments or a motion?
Well, I would just say that in my conversation with a fellow that owns a company, I explained to him that we had a contract price that they had agreed to. There was no specifications for any other amounts, and unfortunately, in our payment of bills, we were going to overpay on this bill, which is the reason I brought it up in the first place. And he understood the position that we were in, and the only request he made was that in subsequent years, we add language to the RFP where we put in request rates for 3,000, 4,000, and 5,000 gallon loads. And we pay by the gallon, not by the pound, and so that's why we need to have that information in the payment of bills, which is what I mentioned at our last board meeting. I think it's important for all of us as board members to go over the payment of bills and make sure we're not overpaying. I don't think residents of this township want to overpay on anything. I know as a taxpayer myself for a good many years here, I don't want to overpay on anything. So just that was spoke with him and got that straightened out, and he's fine with that. He's happy to continue the relationship with Oscoda Township. I explained we were happy to continue the relationship with him. They do a good job for us, and I wanted to get this payment to him as soon as possible.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the payment to liquid calcium chloride, invoice number 59706, adjusted to 55 cents per gallon in the amount of $2,485.45.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Byer.
Yes.
Mr. Palmer.
Yes.
Mr. Gasky.
Yes.
Ms. McGuire.
Yes.
Mr. Cummings.
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. All right, we are now in our second public comment period. A card is not required. There's still a 4-minute time limit, and please introduce yourself when you come to the podium. Does anybody wish to speak?
Larry Holland, Oscoda resident. It's been a long time since we've last spoken. First of all, somebody brought up in the first public comment, Attorney General Dana Nessel. She's got a really good 15-page model ethics ordinance that Oscoda Township could really benefit from. It's already written for you, just have to fill out a couple things and approve it as a board. But what are ethics? Moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. We're conducting meetings here. There's a supervisor in charge, there's trustees that oversee the operations, and then there's specific others that have other roles, clerk, treasurer, superintendent. But in the absence of these ethics ordinances, and when you hear an outcry from the public about some type of behavior that has occurred inside your public meeting, leadership has a duty. And in the absence of an ethics ordinance, there is a thing called censure. Not censoring, like where you delete people's comments off Facebook, but you censure, C-E-N-S-U-R-E. The verb use, express severe disapproval of someone or something, especially in a formal statement. Now, at the onset, when people had an outcry about what had occurred at the July 22nd meeting, there was still time to change the agenda or make some modifications in the other section of how the meeting is run today. The noun version of censure, the expression of formal disapproval. Let me use it in a sentence. Tonight, the board is to consider the censoring or to censor board member X for their sexist behavior toward board member X. End. That can then be brought as a motion, and inside the motion it's debatable. And as a result of that debatable motion, it would come up to a vote. Now, as a result of such a motion, I would expect that if this type of behavior did occur, that there would be a noun version of this statement where it says, a censure was issued against board member X for their comments against board member X at the July 22nd, 2020 regular board meeting. That's what you would read in the newspaper as a result of the activity if the board members agreed with the public that the behavior was outrageous and or sexist. Now, if there is an ethics ordinance, there would be cause for removal for the board could take a vote and remove a board member underneath the ethics guidelines that Dana Nessel has. But since we don't have that, I would expect at least some type of admonishment. We call them public admonishments, where we do not agree with certain behavior as a community, and some of the public came up and did that. But public admonishment isn't enough when the board still sits steady and ultimately has not moved to acknowledge the public and agree with them that this was egregious behavior. Now, there's still board comment, where the board members themselves can comment after the public. And it is the duty of each board member that either they agree or disagree with what I heard as described by Francis Whitney, sexist behavior. So I guess we'll see at the board comment, where the board members get to speak, what their view on the public's comments were about this subject.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak?
Hello, I'm Steve Woosterbarth, Oscoda resident. Full disclosure, I'm also running for trustee in the upcoming primary and hope to be in the general election. So thank you for letting me speak this evening. The reason I'm here is based, it really came in, first of all, because of the current treasurer's positions opened on the primary. It was on the Republican side. But really, I want to follow with Mark Miller's comments from the last meeting, is we need a sense of professionalism. And frankly, I'm a little disappointed it's not here. The last meeting showed that evidently. I'm in the business world. It is unacceptable in any meeting, in any practice, with any company, any employee relationship, to treat somebody with that disrespect. And I expect to hear from Mr. Cummings in the board's comments. I hope to. And I apologize to Treasurer McGuire for those comments, because it's simply unprofessional. But why I'm here? There's a lot of talk around town as to who are you going to support? And I guess in listening to the comments, I really haven't gotten a lot of factual answers from people other than opinions. And it seems to be simply a popularity contest. I hate to put it in that context, but that's simply the way it is. So what I decided to do was look at the 2018 and 2019 financial audits. I'm running for trustee, and I expect the fiduciary responsibility of a trustee is the #1 issue that you sign up to do. And I just don't see that happening based on the 2018 and 2019 audits. And if I look at 2019 in particular from Stevenson and Company, and I look at the management comments, we're simply out of control in the treasurer's office, in the clerk's office, and frankly, from the board of trustees, because I don't see the oversight in helping to fix the situation. I don't know if it's training. I don't know if we're giving the proper tools to those positions to completely do their jobs. But when I read the audits, there's serious, serious deficiencies. And I can cite a few, and this is a public document, and I encourage the voters to get a copy and go through it for themselves. Some of the things called out. Management is not able to prepare financial statements, including disclosures, and the auditors are contracted to prepare these statements. This is considered a control deficiency. The accounts are not being adjusted monthly. The financial records provided to the board each month are not an accurate reflection of the township standings. I have a serious issue with that, is how can you set a budget if on a monthly basis you don't understand your cash flow? You don't understand properly what you have in the account. Frankly, from what I see with these audits that's going on, we come to the end of the year and we make all of these reconciliations between the clerks and the treasurer's office, and we hope that there's money there to pay for it. I just don't see that as an effective way to manage. It wouldn't be acceptable in the job that I have as a vice president with Mitsubishi Chemical, one of the top 5 companies in the world. It's not acceptable here. This is public money. The public has put their trust into this board to manage that money effectively. And simply, all of you have failed collectively. So I hope that in the next board, and some will be here, some will not, that we will fix these issues and go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Hi there, Kathy Woosterbarth. I'm back. I want to do a now update for the Now Need Our Water and the PFAS contamination activities. First of all, we created a 501c3 called Oscoda Citizens for Clean Water. That is an opportunity for us to go and request grants and receive tax, exempt donations. We also received a donation from Bennett and Lake Association for $500, which we are very grateful for. We received a grant from the National PFAS Contamination Coalition for $1,500 to further our mission with the NOW group. Our focused leadership team with the NOW group are meeting 3 to 4 times a month to discuss strategies, really, because who are we? We're fighting the Air Force, right, in the state of Michigan. They're formidable opponents, but we have created a priority statement, which we have, of course, given to the Air Force and the state of Michigan, and I'll read it to you now. It is now's top priority to have the Air Force stop the flow of Woosterbarth PFAS contaminants into all Oscoda area surface waters by no later than 2023, including remediation with utmost speed and urgency of the PFAS plumes impacting Venetton Lake. And you may ask, which some have asked me, why 2023? Don't you want it cleaned up now? Well, we decided on 2023 because we thought that was a reasonable amount of time to clean up these, horrendous plumes that are emitting from this base. So as Aaron had updated us, they probably are not going to meet that that expectation. But again, we're meeting with them regularly. We're meeting with Eagle on a quarterly basis. And really, our strategy with them is to urge effective relations with the U.S. Air Force in terms of how they need to be working with them. Unfortunately, we have to teach them. One of the other exciting things that we have going on is there's been a movie produced called No Defense that has now won awards. That is a documentary on the PFAS contamination in Oscoda. One very exciting news that Aaron just gave us about the maximum contaminant levels. I want to remind our community that we regularly test for PFAS on the intake, right, of the municipal water supply. We haven't had any exceeding these maximum contaminant levels, right? And they're measuring it on a yearly basis moving forward. So it'll be an average of years test. But remember, PFAS is being pumped out of the ground and into area surface waters that is ending up in Lake Huron right now, okay? So it is going to affect our municipal water supply at some point. We just need to be ready for it. We also had a town hall last week from the state of Michigan who hosted, had the Eagle and DHHS and the DNR. Oh, let's see. And then lastly, we have the health project, which DHHS is calling it. This week, there's 2 sessions. They want to know what we want done in terms of health projects, whether it's blood testing or monitoring or that kind of thing. So please show up for that in terms of a virtual meeting. So you can sign on to that. That's my update for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Robert Tasher, and yes, I am running for Oscoda Township Supervisor. There's been a lot of talk going on about the 2019 audit report, and at that meeting on public comment, I had asked what is being put in place to correct the issue of the 50 corrections that were made mentioned in that audit. And now I hear that those 50 corrections add up to $11.8 million. First of all, you hear a lot of things. Is 11.8 million an accurate number? Is that number what those things come up with according to the audit? Rumor this, rumor that. I want to know for sure. 11.8 million, yes or no? So the other thing, what we were talking about here is how do we correct that? I understand that some things were being put into place in the BSNA system, and I would like to know who's working out those details on making the corrections so that these audits are going to be better in the future. 11.8 million, 20 million, I don't know what the numbers are, but 50 corrections, 70 corrections. I understand that there's issues. It's a lot of money we're talking about here, but we got to do better than that. And I want to know who is implementing processes to make those corrections to get this audit better. I think that's extremely important, and it'll cut down a lot on the stuff that we've been seeing in the paper here recently. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? All right, seeing nothing further, and we are now into board comments. Does anybody have anything?
I would like to go first. I've spoken to a good number of people in the community since the last time we met here 2 weeks ago. And I want to say I am truly sorry for the comments that were made to Ms. McGuire. I really do believe that what I had intended, my frustration at that time, was not meant to come off sexist. It was not meant to come off in any other way than simply I was expressing upset and frustration that the communication that I had delivered was not being received, and that the newspaper article that I appeared in as having made a mistake when I had not, when in fact I had actually helped Ms. McGuire's office by simply resubmitting an invoice so that it could be paid in the usual manner, that it wasn't acknowledged. And I am very, truly sorry to all the women and men who have supported this topic of concern toward Ms. McGuire. And Jamie, I am sorry for that. I would like to also know how you feel toward the newspaper article and the appearance of that example that you used for me about that invoice. Do you have a comment there?
I do have a comment about that, actually.
Thank you.
The point being is that I wasn't, the initial reason I put that in the paper is because it was coded incorrectly, and then you corrected it, and it was turned in with your signature on it. That was the only thing I was pointing out, is that it's a township-wide issue. It isn't just in the treasurer's office, it just isn't in the clerk's office. Everybody makes mistakes, we're trying to catch everything and do it at the, when it gets to us. Jane entered it, there was no money allocated to it. That's how it was caught, and then it was changed so it was coded correctly where it needed to be billed to. That was my only point about that $1,900.
All right, and I would like to say that the number that was on that invoice is the correct number.
It is now.
Well, it was the number I wrote. That's my handwriting. It's my
I know it's
signature
your
below it.
handwriting, which is why, I used that as an example. It was your project.
Right.
Correct. Tim, I'm not, if you want to talk to me about this further, because I could go on the rest of the night about the $1,900. So, but I'm not going to, because it's not the time or the place. The bill's been paid, it's taken care of.
Wow, here we are.
Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to pick on Mr. Byer, being that he's the chair of the Road and Sidewalk Committee. Can you get hold of Mr. Bruce Bowens
Yes.
and have him clean the storm sewers in Hall Island,
Okay.
especially the one in front of 313?
I will do that
Every
tomorrow
time it
morning.
rains, I'm 3 houses from there, Jim, and every time it rains, it's halfway up my driveway.
Okay, tomorrow morning I will call him.
He hasn't been in there for 20-some years. The last person that cleaned them storm sewers was Davy Wright. Can you handle that for us?
I will certainly try. Yep.
Appreciate it.
And connected with that, maybe some people in both our real audience or the TV watchers maybe noticed, if they go that way, that we have a brand-new paving project completed on Gaston Way that connects US 23 and Cedar Lake Road. It isn't just a superficial little coating, it's a complete new layer of asphalt for that. It looks great, feels great as you drive over it, so. I have a couple of other comments. I admit to being embarrassed 2 weeks ago that no one said anything after the comment in question, including me. It was at the very end of the meeting, and we all just sat there. I think a lot of us were amazed. And there was one person in the audience that is a candidate for an office that actually applauded the comment and said something like, "We need more trustees like you." But I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. I did fester about it, and I thought, well, I've got to talk to my colleague here, but I waited 2-3 days to do it to see if I was going to cool down and change my opinion, and I did not. So later in the week, maybe Thursday, Friday, I forget, we had a talk, and we talked things over, and at least the person knew my view on it, even though I didn't say anything at the proper time. So so I have expressed my dismay with that, but not in a timely manner. So second thing I would say, on the good side, I think a lot of you probably noticed that our town was really jammed with people over the weekend. I don't know if I've ever seen so many people at the Oscoda Beach Park than Saturday. Wow. Cars were parked on Lake Street. They couldn't find places in the parking lot. It was great. So anyway, that's one item. And just a comment quick about the EMS millage. I know that this board, some more than others, but this board has been concerned about ambulance response time. And it kind of looks like this EMS millage is not aimed at that in particular. It's to generate more money, to pay a better wage, if I had this right, so they don't keep losing employees to towns like West Branch and Standish and so forth. And I know that probably some members of this board are not satisfied with that. But I think in a kind of a roundabout way, this may have a positive effect on our ambulance response concerns. Because there are times when they're losing so many employees that they don't have enough staff to man the ambulance. Not all the time, but on occasion, you know. And if they can keep people longer with a better wage, then they won't run into cases where they're stretched so thin because 6 employees have left in the last month or something like that. That's kind of an indirect, I repeat, way to solve some of our concerns. I'm a kind of a millage favorite guy on this, so that's all.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to make one comment. It was mentioned earlier in the public comments that I had challenged the treasurer on a payment of bills. I would suggest that I will continue to do that. I think as Mr. Woosterbarth pointed out, our responsibility as trustees is to make sure that we're not overpaying bills. The only way I can do that, when I see the packet and I have the payment of bills in front of me, is to look at what the rates are and base it on what our contracts called for. In this case, I pointed out that it was listed in pounds. There's no way to calculate what the proper amount should be in pounds. It should have been in gallons. And if we had approved that, we would have overpaid the bill for that amount. Now, that's been corrected, and so there really isn't a lot more to say about that, but the point being that I will continue to do that. I will continue to follow the payment of bills, and any other mistakes that I see, like I pointed out today, a minor change in one of the items, I will continue to do that. And if the residents of Oscoda Township aren't concerned with making sure the payment of bills are correct, then I would suggest you don't vote for me, because I will continue to do that, regardless of who the treasurer is, to make sure that we're paying the proper amounts on our bills. And if I'm not elected, I will be at these meetings with the packet and ask questions directly about the payment of bills, because I'm a taxpayer as well, and I don't want to see my tax money spent frivolously. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
If I can wade back in a little bit here, we've had a couple of people, Bill just now and others, talk about the Treasury and adjustments that had to be made, some of them at the end of the year and so forth. But I would like the public to know, having been here as long as Jamie, both of us 18 years, that we've had different accounting companies. We don't stick with the same one every time. We've had one from, remember Raymond Robson from Bay City. We've had Stevenson Graysick, and then they split and we had just Stevenson. We've had different accountant as individuals. It isn't the same person every year. This year we had a brand new one that we've never had before. But I can't remember a time when we didn't get an unqualified. I'm sure there may have been some, but I can't remember any. I mean, every year, unqualified is like an A+. They don't have anything any higher. And there's always some glitches. I think if you talk to other communities and their audit reports, there's always things that they can fix and twist and so forth. So I just wanted everybody to understand that we get good marks every year, and these auditors are not dummies. I mean, if we were as sloppy as had been implied, they would tear us apart, and they don't. So, thank you.
Any other comments?
I do. You know what? I also have one for the paper, but I'm not sure if she's here. Just to clarify a few things from last week, the questions from Bill Palmer and Tim Cummings in regards to accounts payable. Let me be clear when I first say that accounts payable is not a statutory duty of the treasurer's office. So I'll start with that. The first document is actually a copy of the superintendent's approved contract. And if you look at F, it says to see that all terms and conditions imposed in favor of the township or inhabitants in any public utility franchise or in any contract are faithfully kept and performed. Under I, it says to prepare and administer the annual budget under policies formulated by the Township Board and to keep, and said the board fully advised at all times as to the financial condition and needs of the townships. On the next document is a narrative that we have to give to the auditors every year about payables and accounts receivables that we process. If you look at that page, it was for this last December 2019. This is what we do as a procedure. And most invoices are received directly by the treasurer's office, who are then distributed to the department heads. Certain monthly bills, such as consumers' energies, are kept for Jane to pay because we have so many and we keep track of the ones where they're getting paid to. The department heads code the invoice for the GL account to be charged and sign the initials to invoice, approve the invoice to verify their approval. Once the invoices are received by Jane, they are used to prepare the invoice approval report that we get to be approved by the board. The next document is a revised statute from 1846. And if you look under that, it's 4.175. It says the payments authorized shall be paid by the treasurer on the order of the township board. I pay the bills. The authorization comes from the board. Also, the last document is Act 2 of 1968. Under budget preparation, if you look at section 414, it says unless otherwise provided by law, charter, resolution, or ordinance, the chief administrative officer shall have final responsibility for budget preparation, the presentation of the budget to the legislative body, and the control of expenditures under the budget. And that chief administration officer is our superintendent, Dave Schaefer.
Anybody have anything else?
Can I ask what you're trying to say with all this?
I'm trying to say that isn't the treasurer's. I was completely being blamed that it was my responsibility for the liquid calcium and for the $1,900 but it isn't just the treasurer's office. There's process and procedures that are in place and people that have responsibilities, and it's not just the treasurer's office is my point. And it's board comment. Dave, if you want to talk to me about that tomorrow, I'd be glad to talk to you.
Anybody else have anything? Any other comments? All right. Number one, I do not censor board members. I am not in charge of all of these board members. I am not above them. They are all elected officials. They are responsible unto themselves and unto the people. If I were to censor board members, I would get accused of being a tyrant. What's some of the other ones that they've used?
Dictator.
Dictator. And I want a board of yes men. And that's not it at all. These are elected officials, and they have the right to say whatever it is they want to say, because you're elected does not mean you've given up your constitutional right as freedom of speech. Now, I'm not saying whether I agree with those comments or not, but I will not censor a board member. I've been told many times that I've needed to shut down board members on several things, but I'm not going to do that. Board members who have sat here and lied to the public's face. Board members who have blatantly said that we don't need to follow Michigan law if there's going to be no repercussions for it. I find that to be offensive. I find it to be offensive when board members aren't doing their job, when they blame it on everybody else. The roles of the trustees are to make sure that these three board members are doing what they're supposed to be doing. The clerk is in charge of all the clerk items, treasurer is in charge of all the treasurer items, I'm in charge of everything else. Trustees, make sure we're doing our jobs. That's how this works. Whether we like the system or not, that's how Michigan law has it set up. And under all circumstances, we are to follow Michigan law above everything. Regarding the audit, the 50 audit adjustments, then there's also a slew of government-wide adjustments that had to be made. All of that total $11.8 million. In there is a section of audit adjustments that were done because of a new GASB. Here we are in the year 2019, and those were not done properly. The biggest bulk of one adjustment line item, a bunch of items under that. Well, it was said that's new. But yet, that GASB details came out in 2017. So there was time to prepare for that. 50 audit adjustments. When business owners have said to me, well, you know, you're going to have some audit adjustments. How many do you think? Well, like 1 or 2. Well, how about 50? How about 71? Well, then they realize the scope of the issue. There's a big problem. And like you had said, Mr. Tazier, it needs to get fixed. And when I brought up some of the issues, you guys knew that I was very upset at the last audit from 2018. I don't know what was fixed, because we're in the same boat that we were before. So yeah, that's a good question. Who is going to fix that? And it requires everyone involved to work on fixing it, people to communicate with each other to fix it. And when we have the superintendent who's taking care of the budget, what's going on with the finances? In my 51-page report, I did point out, we have no idea what our financial standing is. We don't know what's in the bank. Hasn't been presented. And to date, still hasn't been presented. It's only the budget that gets presented. But yet, let's blame everybody else for the problem. I don't agree with that. So it needs to get fixed. You might not like what you consider nastiness, but the facts have been brought out to the public. And if you don't want the public to know the facts, don't elect me, because I will make sure the public knows the facts. If you want me to lie to your face, I'm not your person. If you want a smiling politician who's shaking hands and kissing babies, I'm not your guy. I'm here to get a job done. And when I ran for election, I said, I am not here to make friends. I'm here to get the job done.
Political pitch a little bit?
When I ran in 2012,
Jesus. Your 4 minutes is up.
I don't have a time limit. And I find that to be rather childish on your part for that.
Oh, really? I'm sorry. Yeah, compared to last time, please. Do you need a motion to adjourn?
I need people to take responsibility for their negligence. That's all I want, people to do their job. It's been frustrating. Mr. Woosterbarth came up here and said, oh, it's all of our responsibility. We did not do our jobs. And so for years, I had to contend with a prior administration that refused to give information to me when I would ask for it. It was told to me, it was tried to convey to me that I don't really need the information. Don't ask the question if you can't stand the answer. And I'd reply back, we have to have the answers so that we can address the problems. And when I would keep pushing and pushing, it would take months and sometimes years before the information would be given. That's just not right. The board needs to be fully aware of everything going on. The public needs to be fully aware of everything going on. So that's what I need, people to do their jobs. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thanks for coming out. Aye.